Maria, against my suggestion, brought me like 6 cookies when my back was hurting, and I let Brian have half of one. I'm exaggerating. My name is Samra Brouk. I'm a Williams class of 2008. My pronouns are she, her, and today we're sitting in Rochester, New York. Well, interestingly, as you might expect, most of the pandemic for me was spent campaigning because it was my first time running for office. So I had, I think, like over 100 Zoom events. But in terms of hobbies, I think one of the things that was important for me, at least when everything was kind of shut down and we couldn't be out in the way that we normally are, was I had to take up things that I hadn't done before. So one of those was like running, which is not something I've ever done in my life. And if anyone watches this who went to school with me will be amazed because I really never did physical activity or exercise like that. But it was something I found that was really centering, and you didn't need a gym, you didn't need equipment, and it was free. So that's something that I've somewhat kept post-pandemic. Definitely not as good as I used to be, but that was like a new thing that I tried to do aside from campaigning 24 hours a day. So I am a first-term state senator, so I took office in January of this year, and that is my full-time position. So I actually learned recently that in some states, it's not a full-time job, so I have to actually clarify that this is a full-time salary position. It's what I do every day, and I was joking before, when I'm not acting as a senator and working in my government job, most of that time is spent fundraising for my next election because they're 2-year terms, and that's a huge part of it. But that's what I do now, and to be honest, every part of that job is rooted in my community. You know, I'm originally from Rochester. Actually, where we're standing right now, we're sitting in Village Gate, which is where my Senate office is. But it's also where I came as a kid all the time. I was a musical theater kid, and I took acting classes upstairs in this exact building. And it's really cool because this building smells the same way it smelled 25 years ago. And it's like, it always brings back memories, and now it's really amazing because you get to create new memories. Like now I'm sitting here as an elected official, while before I was like an 11-year-old, you know, taking these classes, thinking she'd be on Broadway someday. And so that's really cool because I get to serve the exact community that raised me, that I spent most of my life in, and that's really, really great.
It sort of brings it in a fascinating way full circle back, right? I'm always sort of curious when I hear this type of stories from friends and classmates. What was sort of the spark or the moment in which you realized, I want to do this, one of possibly among the hardest jobs right now, especially in trying to maintain a balance with your constituents? I know this is sort of a different question outside our line of questions, if you're comfortable answering that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because when I was in college especially, this was just not something on my radar. I was interested in politics a little bit, and I did start off as a political science major. And then it's funny, I think it was one of the first classes I took as a first year for poli-sci. I wrote this paper around why people make decisions, like political decisions, and it was this long, like 15-page paper, and I basically got down to the fact that it's mostly like kind of irrational. Like you can't gauge how people are going to make their political decisions, and it's largely based on psychology. And then that's where I kind of started into psychology. So I ended up being a psychology major, thinking even if I wanted to go into politics someday, I didn't know what it would look like. Psychology might be more helpful than political science, which incidentally it is. Like understanding people, understanding why they do what they do is huge as an elected official, as it is when you're campaigning to talk to people and connect to people. So all of that to say, one of the sparks for me was like really a series of sparks of things that just kept happening, right? Like I've always been involved in social change. I did Peace Corps, I've worked in nonprofits, I've done all of that. And obviously after 2016, like many of us, I got a lot more involved and spent more time in DC trying to fight for social justice. And then the last moment for me was I met Stacey Abrams in 2018 before her election when she was running for governor. And that was life-changing because the story she talked like she shared about where she comes from, about how, you know, she didn't have a traditional trajectory to politics. She was a small business owner. She was a novelist. A lot of people don't know she writes romance novels, and a tax attorney, and she went to Yale Law School, right? Like she still had some of those accolades, but I really connected with her story, and that kind of like clicked for me to think someone like that can run for such a big seat. Maybe my background could work for that too. And so actually the event was in New York that I met her, and 2 months later I was in Georgia. I used the last of my JetBlue reward points and flew to Georgia and knocked doors for her in rural Georgia from New York. Like just went down there and found a place to stay and did it. And I thought I could do this. I loved it. I loved talking to people about these issues, and that was kind of the last thing where I thought, okay, maybe I can actually do it. Actually, one experience I had was actually a winter study that is really cool to share, because no one who I usually talk about this with understands what winter study is. So it was my sophomore year. They had this really great thing where you could kind of do an independent study. And it was my sophomore year was when Hurricane Katrina hit. And so I remember thinking, and people probably remember, there were students from Xavier and students from Tulane who are like still friends of ours, and they came up, and I remember thinking, you know, I thought I was stressed out, right? College is stressful because, you know, I didn't get to my job on time, or I've got a paper to write, or I'm tired, whatever. Or I'm having issue with a friend, right? Like these are the stressors I had in college. But then these students came up, and I started to get to know them, and you heard real struggle. Some of them were separated from their families. Some of them didn't have a home to go back to. We were getting clothes together. All of us at the college really supported. And so when it came time to do winter study in January, a couple of us thought, why would we just stay here and, you know, do a random, like I took crocheting or something, like, you know, instead of that, we could actually make a difference and try to help. And so we asked the school, we wrote a grant, we got funding, which is amazing. The school actually helped fund this because I didn't have money for a flight to Mississippi. And a group of us went down to Biloxi, Mississippi, and we volunteered with this organization that did disaster relief. I'd never done disaster relief before. I didn't know what I got myself into. I just knew that it was something I had to do. We slept on the floor of a church for 4 weeks, and I met people from all over the world. I met people from Australia. I met executives from Visa who would come down to help with like project planning, healthcare workers. It was just such a formative experience for me, and actually the school has a requirement that you have to like journal. You have to report on what you did, which is good, accountability. So it also forced me to reflect. And I remember I shared with everyone this one thing that I took out of it, which was, this was the first time my work wasn't either to like pay a bill, right? Like I'd always had lots of jobs to pay for college and all these things, or to get a good grade for myself, which was a new thing for me. Like the work I did was only to serve others, right? I wasn't getting a paycheck, and I wasn't, you know, trying to get good grades or whatever it was. And that was this like click for me too, around the fact that I wanted to do service more. And I think that's why when I graduated from Williams, I went straight to the Peace Corps, because I was hooked on trying to do some kind of volunteer work. But that was such an incredible experience, and not everyone gets to do that. So I was grateful that I was at a place that would actually support it. Actually, it's a really funny story I'll share really quickly. I was on a call with someone the other day, and I was like sitting in my car wrapping up a call with a friend, and literally in the middle of the call I said, "Ooh, a cardinal." And she didn't know what I was talking about or why I was so distracted. And I told her, I was like, it's not that I'm distracted, I'm very interested in what you're saying, but I feel like especially over the last year and a half or 2 years, I've tried to find all the smallest ways to find joy, because it's not always going to be some grand thing that happens. Like, I felt joy when I won my election. That was amazing. You know, I feel joy when we can help someone get their unemployment benefits that haven't gotten paid for 6 months, but that doesn't always happen every day. And so like I try to find at least small things. And so I explained to her, it's not that I'm not listening to you, it's that I've somehow found joy in finding cardinals because they're usually rare. Like you never see cardinals. And so I'm not even a bird person, but there was just something so kind of nice about that this random little bird that I think is supposed to be a winter bird, but it's summer, and it was just kind of cool to see him. So it's like, that's nothing big, but there's all these like small ways, you know, that you can just find something to smile about. And I have to give a shout out to my new puppy too. He brings me a lot of joy. I almost brought him, but he's a little squirmy, I know. And I actually got him, I tried to get him during the campaign, and my husband was not having it because we were very busy, as everyone was getting dogs in the pandemic. And then I saw that AOC got a dog after her election, so I told him if I win, I should also be able to get a dog. And somehow it worked. So anyways, I got him in the middle of budget season, which is the most stressful time as a legislator, and he has been my little joy every day because he always does something that's ridiculous, and you can just like laugh about it. So that's my constant joy.
What's your puppy's name?
Kofi. My husband named him. He has high expectations for our puppy after Kofi Annan. So he has yet to live up to those expectations, but he's still cute, so it's okay. So I'm gonna break the rules a little bit. I can't choose one person. And here's why. I think I have a good reason. The truth is, you know, the position I'm in now is incredibly challenging. There are all sorts of obstacles every day. But one of the things that really keeps me going, in addition to finding the joy with the cardinals that pop up once in a while and my little puppy, are thinking about all of the people that helped you get to where you are. And so I just want to say thank you to them, right? And show gratitude to them, because the truth is, so many people, either people who have known me for 30-something years or people who just met me, you know, 10 minutes ago, all at some point chose to, in some ways, take a risk to believe that I could achieve something greater, believe that, you know, believe in me. And that is something that, going back to bringing joy, that also brings me joy every single day. Just that gratitude and appreciation that people show up for you, even when it's difficult. And so I have to say thank you to all of them.
We're deeply grateful on that note to you. We're filled with gratitude because a lot of this project relies on sort of naming that out loud in different ways for different alongs. And so thank you for sharing yourself as a human being in this world, for the journey you've had as a person, coming back to your community, and through the magnificent achievement of, you know, becoming state senator for your own district here in New York State. Are there any last words you'd like to share in general, particularly whether it's around this project or anything particular that you're curious about at all?
Two things. One, if you are a young woman, consider running for office, and you heard it here, DM me on Twitter, email me, I will help you. I will talk to any young woman who wants to run for office, or femme presenting person who wants to run for office. And two, go Ephs.
It took us an hour and a half to put in 1 minute Instagram video because I couldn't hold my laughter together and I couldn't remember my lines about anything.
And everyone would love that. You should just use that.